God's will. We're praying.
Do not scroll. The most interesting part is ahead. Subscribe, hit like, and drop a comment. Thank you for staying with us. Night had fallen over the quiet dirt road. Marta, a 20-year-old woman from an Amish community, gripped the reins tightly. Her face, usually calm and luminous, was tense. She knew she was late, very late. Her younger brother Jacob, a 15-year-old boy, was suffering from a bad cold, and Mrs. Fisher, who lived at the far edge of their land, had herbs that might ease his condition. Marta had promised to bring them back by dawn. The moon hanging overhead was pale and gave little light, slipping behind thin clouds. Suddenly, the horse stumbled. A sharp, unexpected jolt threw Marta forward. Then a piercing screech tore the night, followed by the deafening crack of wood. The buggy lurched hard to the right, nearly overturning. Marta barely kept her balance on the seat, her heart pounding like a frightened bird in a cage. She clenched the reins, trying to calm the spooked horse. "Whoa, easy, easy, my good one," she whispered, her voice trembling. The horse breathed hard, but stopped. Marta sprang down from the buggy, her long dark skirt tangling around her legs. In the thin moonlight, she saw it. The axle, split, all the way through. Ahead lay at least 5 miles to their home. All around stretched only endless fields, black in the darkness, and a dark, ominous forest on the horizon. No one in sight. But what should she do now? Wait for daybreak? Jacob might not last. A sudden blaze of headlights cut through the dark from behind. A powerful, modern SUV rolled closer, its engine purring. It stopped beside the buggy. A tall man stepped out. An English outsider, the Amish term for people who are not Amish. He wore a light shirt and dark trousers, nothing like the plain, austere clothes of her community. His hair was dark, his build strong and sure. "Do you need help?" he asked. His voice was deep and steady, carrying a kind of quiet strength that drew her attention at once. He did not look hostile, but he was nothing like anyone she knew. Marta took a step back, her eyes widening with caution. Fear and shame rushed over her. She should not have been here. She should not have seen him. "My axle, it broke," was all she managed to say. She felt heat flood her cheeks, though the darkness hid it. The man quickly assessed the situation. He walked to the buggy, bent down, and examined the broken axle. His hands were strong, his movements assured. "Yes, the axle is broken," he confirmed. "But I think I can brace it well enough to get you home. I have some tools in my truck." He did not wait for permission, just turned back to his SUV. Marta stood silent, watching him. He pulled a large toolbox from the vehicle, a powerful flashlight, and several sturdy cords like tow straps. Under the flashlight's beam, which now lit his face clearly, she saw his eyes attentive, penetrating, the color of deep water. A light stubble made his features a bit severe, and, at the same time, strangely appealing. She noticed a small scar above his brow. "Hold the light here, please," he said, his voice calm and businesslike. "Yes, all right," she answered softly. They worked together in an odd quiet broken only by the metallic rasp of tools, the whisper of wind across the fields, and the distant hum of night insects. He gave her short, clear instructions. "Hold here. Shine it right there." Her fingers, trained by housework and fieldwork, obeyed readily. His nearness stirred a strange, unfamiliar feeling in her. Forbidden. Her body registered his presence, his scent a mix of metal, fresh air, and something indefinably masculine that felt worlds apart from what she knew. She felt taut with nerves, and yet oddly safe beside him. When the axle was temporarily secured with metal plates and stout cords, the man straightened. "All set," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "It will hold until you get home, but you will need to replace it as soon as possible." He turned back to Marta. She stood a little apart, her gaze fixed on his face. He offered his hand. His palm was warm and firm. "John," he said, looking her straight in the eye. "Marta," she replied, touching his palm. The lightest contact rippled through her like a current. She felt his strength, his warmth spreading through her arm and into her chest. It was instant, but intense, leaving a strange afterglow. Sensing her embarrassment and the faint tremor in her hand, He added, "I am a doctor," as if to explain his presence and his help, and perhaps that brief touch. "I work in town. If you ever need—" He fished a small notepad from his pocket, tore out a clean slip, and wrote down a phone number. "This is my phone. In case of trouble, do not hesitate to call." He handed her the slip. Marta closed it in her palm, her eyes meeting his. In that look was something more than simple gratitude. It was a foreshadowing, the sense of something inevitable, something that could change her life. Her heart quickened again, this time not from fear, but from an unnameable thrill. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. John nodded, his gaze resting on her face a moment longer, as if trying to read something in her eyes, before he returned to his vehicle. He slid behind the wheel and started the engine. The SUV turned and vanished into the dark, leaving Marta alone with a feeling she could not quite understand. She climbed onto the buggy seat, her hands still shaking. The slip of paper burned in her palm. She knew she was doing something forbidden. Yet in that moment, beneath the pale moon, she felt more alive than she ever had. She set off for home, but now every creak of the wheels sounded like the song of changes beginning in her soul. When Marta finally reached home, the moon was already sinking beyond the horizon, giving way to a pale pink dawn. She quietly led the buggy into the barn, trying not to make a sound. But her father, Jacob Sr., was already waiting on the doorstep. His tall, solid frame cast a long shadow in the first light. His face, usually stern and dignified, was tight with irritation. He held a lantern whose beam caught the dew on the grass. "Where were you, Marta? So late?" His voice rang out like iron, cutting the dawn's hush without mercy. Marta lowered her eyes, guilt clenching her heart. She could not speak of John, of the English man's help. That would be like confessing the worst sin, one that could destroy her standing in the community and bring disgrace on the whole family. "The buggy broke, Dad," she said quietly. "The axle split. I had to repair it on the road." She hoped her voice sounded convincing. "By yourself?" her father asked, his eyes boring into her, as if he could read the slightest trace of a lie. He stepped closer, his anger gathering over her like a heavy cloud. "You know the rules, Marta. Never stay alone on the road after dark. Never accept help from strangers. What kept you so long?" At that moment, the door opened, and Eli, her childhood friend who had always been nearby, came in. He was a 22-year-old young man, sturdy and reliable, with broad shoulders and kind but overly watchful eyes that never stopped tracking Marta. His gaze met hers. Concern was there, and something else possession. He looked at her as if she were his, as if she had been gone too long and needed to be put back in place. "I was worried about you, Marta," Eli said, his voice a touch sharp, edged with reproach. He turned to her father. "Perhaps, Jacob Sr., it is time Marta had a protector, so she would not have to come home so late alone. I am ready to take that responsibility." Marta felt her heart tighten. She knew what Eli meant. Marriage. Their path had been marked out since childhood, when their parents decided they would be a pair. It was logical, proper. But thoughts of John, his touch, his eyes had already taken up residence in her head, throwing her orderly world out of tune. She felt her world splitting. Her father nodded, his face easing a little at Eli's words. "Eli is right. It is only a matter of time. We will discuss it. Soon." His gaze slid back to Marta, a warning in it louder than any words. "Now go rest, and think on your behavior. Think, Marta." Marta felt the walls of the community closing around her like an invisible cage. She could hardly breathe. She went to her room, a weight pressing on her chest as if an unseen hand had tightened around it. The slip with John's number in her skirt pocket seemed to scorch her. It was her secret, her forbidden tie to the world beyond her people, her only hope for something else she could not yet name. That slip of paper was her freedom, her defiance, and at the same time her curse. She fell onto the bed, palm pressed to her chest where the paper lay. She could hear her father's and Eli's voices drifting from the sitting room. They were deciding her fate without asking her consent. Her life had been laid out like the pages of an old book. But now she held the key to a different story. Marta's days ran on in the community's familiar monotony. She rose with the sun. Her hands never rested, milking cows, cooking breakfast for a large family, field work. Her body stayed busy, but her mind kept circling back to that night. She saw John, his tall figure, his confident movements, his penetrating eyes. She remembered the warmth when his hand touched hers. Every detail was carved into memory. It was wrong. She had known that since childhood. Her thoughts were sinful, her feelings forbidden. Her upbringing, her faith, her community all condemned such thoughts as worldly temptations that lead from the righteous path. But she could not stop them. Eli grew more persistent. He came by in the evenings after a hearty supper, when everyone gathered in the main room to read the Bible and talk. He would sit beside her, his shoulder barely touching hers. He spoke of their future, the home they would build, the children they would have, their place in the community. He was kind and dependable, his words full of confidence in a shared life. He was the ideal husband for a woman of their people. But there was no spark in his talk, none of that unknown something John had awakened in her. Eli's touches were familiar, expected, but they did not set off the trembling Marta had felt from one look at John. She avoided Eli's eyes, trying not to meet his gaze. Guilt gnawed at her. She knew she ought to be grateful to Eli, to accept her lot, her assigned place. She knew her path was the one her mother and grandmother and all the women of her community had walked. It was a path of righteousness, peace, and stability, but something inside her rebelled and refused to submit. The day of the community barn raising arrived. Everyone gathered to help the Millers, their neighbors, build a new barn. It was a day of hard work and of unity, companionship, laughter, and song. The men felled and cut timber, the women cooked, the children ran about, playing and helping with easy tasks. The sun shone bright, and the air smelled of fresh cut wood. Jacob Jr., her brother, was strong and eager, full of energy and joy. Smiling, he climbed a tall ladder to help fasten the roof beams. His face was flushed with effort, his eyes alight. Marta watched him with pride and tenderness. He was her joy, her light. A scream split the air loud, piercing, full of terror. Peace shattered like a gunshot. The ladder beneath Jacob shifted. Perhaps it had been poorly secured. Perhaps Jacob pressed too hard in his hurry. It began to tip, slowly, slowly, and Jacob with it. He was too high to catch himself. Marta saw it all as if in slow motion. He fell from several yards up, onto hard, packed ground. Silence followed, louder than any cry. Marta rushed to him, her heart hammering. The crowd froze, faces twisted with shock. The elders, gray-bearded, respected men surrounded Jacob. They began to pray at once, their voices rising in a monotone, but Marta heard despair and helplessness in them. They pressed herbs to his wounds and wrapped them with clean cloth, trying to stop the bleeding. But Marta could see it was not enough. His pain did not lessen. His face grew paler with each minute, his breathing more labored. He started to slip in and out of consciousness. Panic gripped her. She looked at her father, at her mother, at the elders' faces. Fear and powerlessness were in their eyes, but no solution. The rules were strict and unbending. Do not turn to English medicine. Trust only God's will. Our ways are God's ways. But Jacob was suffering. His life was in danger. He was her younger brother, a part of her. She could not simply stand and watch him die while they prayed. She remembered John. His words rang in her mind as clear as a bell. I am a doctor. If you ever need... Her gaze slipped to the pocket of her skirt. John's number. The decision came in an instant, slicing through fear and doubt like a blade of light. She had to act. We must call a doctor, Marta said, her voice loud and firm, cutting into the elders' droning prayers. Every eye turned to her. Father Jacob Sr. faced her, his features twisted with surprise and anger. What are you saying, Marta? This is God's will. We must pray. This is not God's will, Dad. He is dying. He needs a doctor, a real doctor. Heat blazed in her cheeks, but she did not back down. She felt there was only one way. She knew she was doing the unthinkable, defying every rule they lived by, but Jacob's life mattered more than any rule or outrage. Marta broke from the crowd, her heart pounding. She ran without looking back, ignoring the scandalized stares that followed. She sprinted to the house where, in a secret spot beneath old floorboards, the family kept an old phone powered off. It was the only phone they had, used only in dire emergencies with the elders' permission, and usually hidden and silent. Her hands shook as she pulled it out. Her fingers were sweaty and clumsy. She turned it on. The screen glowed dim but dazzling. Her breath quickened, fear and resolve whirling inside her. Her fingers gathered courage and dialed the number. Someone picked up. Hello, the familiar voice, John's voice. The same deep, steady tone she had heard that night, now edged with a question. This is Marta, if you remember me. She could barely breathe, her voice hoarse with anxiety and the adrenaline flooding her veins. My brother, he fell. He is very bad. Please, come. Quickly. John did not interrupt. He listened. All right, Marta, I am on my way, he said. His voice was clear, professional, unpanicked. I will be there in 20 minutes. Keep him warm and do not move him if you can help it until I arrive. Marta ended the call. Her hands still trembled. Her face burned. She had broken the most sacred rule. She had crossed a line no one in her community dared to cross, but she had done it for her brother. Fear and determination mingled within her. She raced back to where Jacob lay. John arrived quickly. His black SUV rolled down the familiar road, but this time he did not stop at the shoulder. He drove straight onto the community grounds to the place where a crowd of frightened, bewildered people stood clustered. John stepped out, wearing medical scrubs and carrying a large medical bag that looked like a lifeline in that world of tradition. His appearance hit the gathering like an explosion, unexpected, shocking, disruptive. Silence, astonishment, outrage that seemed to charge the air. Marta stood by Jacob, holding his hand, eyes fixed on John with hope and dread. Her father, the elders all looked at John with open hostility, their faces set like stone. John ignored the drilling stares. He assessed Jacob's condition at once. His movements were swift and professional. He checked pulse, breathing, pupils. His hands were steady, his face focused, showing nothing but competence. He cut open Jacob's shirt and examined the injuries. Fracture of the left shin, possible fracture of the left wrist, severe concussion, he said, giving a quick injection of painkiller. Jacob groaned, then his body eased. He needs immediate hospitalization. We cannot do anything here. Internal bleeding is possible. He addressed the elders in a calm voice that brooked no argument, the lone authority that mattered at that moment. His life is in danger. He needs surgery. I have called an ambulance. It should be here already. Every minute counts. Marta saw her father turn away, anger and helplessness twisting his features. The elders whispered among themselves, their faces as dark as storm clouds. Cornered, they could not deny the obvious Jacob hovered near death. Their traditions had run up against life and death. Within a few minutes, the ambulance appeared. Paramedics carefully lifted Jacob onto a stretcher and secured him. John helped, giving crisp instructions. I will ride with him, John said. He needs constant monitoring. I will keep you informed. He glanced at Marta. In his quick look she read gratitude and recognition. You did well, Marta. You saved his life. Marta watched the ambulance vanish over the rise, carrying her brother and John away. Her gaze met her father's. In his eyes burned anger and fury, yet also fear for his son, wrestling with pride. The next day Marta was summoned before the elders. She stood in the large meeting hall. Her face looked calm, but inside she boiled. They accused her of breaking the order, of betraying the faith. You turn to an English outsider, said the chief elder, his voice cold as ice. You rejected our traditions, our trust in God's will. You questioned our ways. I saved my brother's life, Marta answered, her voice firm, without a whisper of remorse. He would have died if I had not acted. Would you have let him die? Is that true faith, to wait for death? Her words cracked the silence like lightning. The elders stared, faces hard with indignation, lips tight. Her audacity was unheard of. "You are shunned," the elder declared, implacable, "until you repent, until you understand your guilt before God and the community." "I will not repent for saving a life," Marta said, her voice hard as stone. Pain ran through her, and a strange freedom. She was cast out, yet she was herself. Her heart hurt, but her spirit did not break. Shunning meant utter isolation. Marta found herself in a void. She became invisible, an outcast in her own home, where she had once been a respected daughter. Her mother sometimes sent her a glance of compassion, but could say nothing or risk shunning herself. Her father avoided her, never looking her way, as if she did not exist. The silence pressing in on her was heavier than any words of blame. Each step on the creaking boards echoed her loneliness. She could not bear it. It was unbearable. She felt crushed by the total denial of everything she had known. She reached for the phone again. She did not know what to do or where to go. Lost, her world upside down, she dialed. "Hello, John?" Her voice trembled, barely more than a breath. "Marta, how are you? What has happened?" His voice brimmed with concern. To Marta, it was like a first breath of air after being held underwater too long. I have been shunned," she whispered, tears choking her. A brief pause on the line. "Come to me, Marta," he said at last, his voice turning resolute. "You cannot stay alone. You need help. I will send a taxi for you. Do you know how to handle that?" Marta nodded, though he could not see it. "Yes, I have seen it done. Just tell the address." "Do not worry. I will give them the address. Wait on the road behind the church in 15 minutes." She hesitated. It broke every rule. It was unthinkable. But she was alone. She went to him, caught between fear, despair, and a strange, almost forbidden hope. She did not know what to expect, only that she could not remain in the hell she had entered. She made it. The taxi, a sleek, unfamiliar car, waited just as John had promised. She got in. The ride was quick and quiet. The driver said nothing, glancing at her only now and then in the rearview mirror. It was her first time in the city at night, and the lights glimmering around her seemed strange and enticing all at once. John's house belonged to another world. It stood on a quiet street, but was nothing like her home. Modern, bright, spacious. Everything was different furniture, paintings on the walls, electric light filling every corner. It was nothing like her modest dwelling lit by candles and oil lamps. John met her at the door. His gaze was warm, his face compassionate but not pitying. "Come in, Marta," he said, opening the door wider. "You must be tired and hungry. I have already prepared something light." He offered her food and hot tea. Then he gave her clean, soft clothes, a simple t-shirt and sweatpants that felt strangely light and gentle against her skin. "You can take a shower if you like," he said, nodding to the bathroom. "There are clean towels and soap." Marta had never been in such a bathroom. The water was warm, her body loosened. She felt the road's dust wash away and perhaps a layer of the burden on her soul. When she came out, she felt a little lighter. He told her about Jacob. "Jacob is improving," John said. "The surgery went well. The bone is mending properly. He will be all right. You saved his life, Marta. That is what matters." The words were balm, the most precious she could hear. Though shunned, she knew she had chosen rightly. They sat in his living room and talked. About her life, the community's rules, her faith. About his world, medicine, his hospital work. He listened without interrupting or judging, asking only to understand. He did not try to impose his views. He simply listened. Marta had never felt so understood. A charged quiet grew between them. They looked at one another. Their eyes met. There was something more than sympathy and attraction both felt and tried to hide. He showed her to the guest room. It was clean and spacious, with a large bed and a window looking out to a garden where tiny lights twinkled. "You may stay as long as you need, Marta," he said. His voice was gentle, yet steady. "You are safe here. You can rest." She felt his nearness, his scent, his presence. Her body responded to it, to his attention. She was afraid, and she wanted it. A powerful, unfamiliar longing swept over her. She could not control it. He paused in the doorway. Their eyes met again. In that look was a question, and an answer, unspoken but clear. Every cell in her body felt it. She stepped toward him without meaning to. Her body moved as if drawn by an unseen force. He lifted a hand. His fingertips touched her cheek lightly, carefully then slid down to her neck and collarbones, sending a shiver through her. She felt his warmth. Her skin burned under his touch. He leaned in. Their lips met. A light kiss. Hesitant, careful. Then deeper, more urgent. She answered. Her arms went around his neck, her fingers in his hair. She felt the strength of him under her hands. His arms circled her waist, pulling her closer. She felt the heat of him, his breath on her face. Her breathing quickened, her heart raced. They were at the edge, at the limit of what was allowed, a boundary she had never imagined crossing. He broke from her lips. Their eyes were bright with a desire they could not hide, a fire between them. Marta, he whispered, his voice rough with emotions he barely held in check. She knew it was wrong, sinful, a betrayal of everything she believed. But she could not stop. She wanted him. She wanted to feel more of him. She wanted to forget her pain, her world, her shunning. She wanted this feeling that filled her emptiness. He stepped back. His eyes stayed on her, struggling. You must decide what to do next, Marta, he said, his voice deep and conflicted. I do not want to entangle you further. I respect your choice. He left the room, and she was alone. Marta stood trembling in the center of the room. She touched her lips, tasting the kiss. Marta hardly slept in John's house. She lay staring at the ceiling where night shadows wavered. Her thoughts swirled. In the morning she came downstairs. John waited in the kitchen, breakfast ready. He looked restrained, but his eyes held a care that spoke louder than words. Have you decided? He asked softly. I am going back, Marta said, voice steady, though emotions still churned inside. Home, to the community. He nodded. His look was sad, without judgment. I understand, he said. I will always remember you, Marta. A sharp ache pricked her heart. She would remember him too. Every moment, every touch. She met her mother at daybreak, when the sun had yet to rise, but the sky was already gray. Her mother looked exhausted, her eyes swollen from crying, her face worn. Marta, her mother whispered, embracing her. The hug was firm, full of desperation, as if she tried to pour all her love and pain into it. I cannot speak to you. Your father forbade it, but I pray for you every day. I know, Mama, Marta held her tightly, feeling her warmth. I know you worry, but I know what I am doing. Your father, he is very angry, her mother said, drawing back with pained eyes. But he misses you. He misses Jacob. It is tearing him apart. I am returning to the community, Mama. I only want Jacob to be well, and for you to know I have not forgotten you, never. Her mother nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I know, child. Be wise. Do not lose everything you have. Marta nodded. She went back. She stood before the elders in the great meeting hall, the very place where she had been shunned. Her face was calm, but within her burned a steady fire. She stood straight, eyes up. I am here to ask forgiveness for the disturbance I caused, she said, her voice quiet but firm, with no trace of weakness. I broke the community's rules by turning for help to the English world, but I did it to save my brother Jacob's life. I do not repent of saving a life, but I ask pardon for having cast doubt on your decisions and caused division among us. She chose her words with great care. It was her compromise her way back without renouncing her principles, yet still showing respect for the community. The elders wavered. They studied her, thoughtful. They saw her resolve. They understood she would not renounce what she had done, yet she was ready to accept the consequences and longed to return. They exchanged looks. At last the chief elder spoke. We accept your petition, Marta. You may return to the community, But you will be under strict watch. You must keep every rule, stricter than ever. Any further breach will bring the harshest consequences." Marta nodded, a victory bittersweet. She arranged a last meeting with John. The place was a bridge between their worlds, the Amish side and the English side. It was a warm autumn day. The leaves had turned gold, carpeting the ground, but the wind was chilly, warning of winter. John waited at the middle of the bridge, leaning on the rail. As she approached, her heart beat faster. He turned toward her, sadness in his face and a strange clarity in his eyes. Dressed simply, he still looked out of place in that scene. "I am going back," Marta said, her voice barely carrying in the wind. "Home, to the community." John nodded. His gaze was full of understanding and deep sorrow. "I understand, Marta. I am glad Jacob is making a full recovery, and I am glad you are returning to your family. That is your home." Their eyes met, so much unspoken. Feelings too large for ordinary words. "I will never forget you, Marta," John whispered, voice low. "You changed my life. You showed me what real courage is." "And I will never forget you, John," she answered, barely above a whisper. Heat rose in her face, and her chest tightened with the pain of parting. They stood there on the bridge, feeling the weight of goodbye. They could not cross the boundaries dividing their worlds and their lives. It hurt. It was right. She knew there was only this one path. He stepped closer and took her hands. His touch was gentle and sorrowful. He looked deep into her eyes, as if to catch every detail of her face and keep it forever. Marta felt her heart contract. She wanted to stay. She wanted his arms around her. But she could not. He let her hands go and stepped back. Distance settled between them again. "Farewell, Marta," he said. His voice was calm, but she heard the pain in it. "Farewell, John." She turned and walked away, back to her home, to her community, leaving him there on the bridge. Her heart felt torn to pieces, yet her resolve held. Each step took her farther from John and closer to what she believed was her duty. Years passed. Marta worked in the community. Her status was restored, but trust was not. People always watched her with a faint suspicion, as if she might break the order again, as if her soul were tainted by contact with the outside world. Still, Marta was respected. Her labor was flawless, her conduct exemplary. She kept every rule and gave no cause for reproach. Jacob recovered completely. He worked the farm, married a young woman from their community, and had children. He never forgot who had saved his life. At times, when they were alone, he would look at Marta with such deep gratitude that she knew her choice had not been in vain. He understood how much she had sacrificed for him. Eli asked for her hand again. More than once. His persistence was remarkable. After Marta returned, he tried to be near, to help, to show that he was her support. "Eli," she said one evening when he raised marriage yet again. They sat on the porch watching the sunset. "You are a good man. You deserve a good wife. But my heart, it belongs to another. I cannot be your wife. I could not give you what you deserve." Eli did not understand. He argued duty and their future among their people. But her resolve did not bend. She did not marry. She lived her life by the rules. She helped raise the community's children and tended the sick. Her experience with Jacob had taught her much, and she often used English remedies and methods, disguising them under the veil of traditional herbs. But in her heart, she kept the memory of John, the memory of the bridge of their farewell. Sometimes, when she was alone, she would take from her Bible that same slip of paper John's number. She never called. She never again crossed that boundary. But she knew it was there, a sign of the choice that had saved her brother's life. A choice that had not destroyed her home, but had given her an inner strength. She came to understand that love is not only marriage and family. It can be the choice you make every day. The choice to live truthfully, even when it hurts. She learned to live with that unspoken love, turning it into an inner pillar. She was grateful for the choice that had allowed her to remain herself despite circumstances, and to keep alive the memory of a forbidden yet true feeling. That slip of paper was her talisman, her secret. her freedom. Her life was not like the lives of other women in the community, but it was hers. Genuine, full. She found her own way within tradition while staying true to herself. Subscribe to our channel so you do not miss anything, because this is nothing compared with what is coming next. If you are under 18, do not even think about pressing next.